Welcome to our webinar, Tools in Teaching Coding and Game Design from GameMaker. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Today, we're going to look at different methods of teaching GameMaker at different stages as students progress through their education. So, to the agenda. We'll start with a brief overview of GameMaker and then look at the approaches to teaching game design. This includes some feedback from teachers who took part in a survey we did back in November 2020. We'll then look at the different approaches taken for different student age groups. And for each age group, we will move on to the challenges brought about by COVID and how to adjust to home learning. We'll look at the approach to privacy and licensing, including the licensing support that we are providing to all schools during COVID. And then we'll finish up with a Q&A on how to get your free license. Before we get to the educator resources, I'd like to provide a brief overview of GameMaker Studio 2. Sorry, 2 seconds. Very sorry, I'm just having some trouble with my slides here. It was first developed in 1999 for use in education. It is an easy to learn, 2D game making tool. Being 2D is important for learning because it removes much of the complexity associated with 3D and allows for faster progress. It has a drag and drop or D&D system available for no-code development. So students firstly understand the fundamental building blocks of the logic involved in game making and then can progress to coding when they are ready. This allows them to progress seamlessly without hitting a wall. It also has a custom language, which is GML or GameMaker language. This JavaScript-like language is based on C and designed to be easy to use for game design and to be simple to pick up. GameMaker includes a number of editors, so you can edit images, sprites, objects, and rooms, and also now includes the sequence animation tool. There are free teacher resources that teach the fundamentals of coding and help guide students to build their own games step by step. We have a large and supportive and active community with forum and social media allowing for beginner tips to be given by the pros. And we have big studio credibility. Students can see hundreds of real games made with GameMaker, with many that are multi-million sellers. This link here will take you to our showcase, which contains a lot of great games, all made with GameMaker, and some of them are award-winning games too. Over 1,500 new users register every single day, with 90% of them being beginners. While GameMaker is a professional tool, it is at the same time an accessible foundation tool. We sent out a questionnaire to our teachers at the start of November 2020. When we asked, how effective are game design lessons at teaching the following, you can see the positive results on this slide. The responses are consistent with answers we received to a previous survey back in 2019, which asked a similar question. More than 75% of respondents rated the effectiveness of GameMaker at learning engagement, individual confidence, and planning at somewhat effective or better. I'm often asked at what age GameMaker is taught. And as you can see from this graph, there is a wide range of ages. But today, I'm going to look at the approaches taken broadly at ages 12 to 14, 15 to 16, and then 17 plus. Here's a graph showing how teachers approach the teaching of game design from a survey of educators who use GameMaker. As you can see, the teaching of GameMaker is very hands-on, so it suits kinesthetic learners. This is probably why we hear that students who struggle to engage in other areas of the curriculum are more motivated to engage with GameMaker game design lessons. I was recently talking to one of our teachers who provides alternative provisions to children who have behavioural difficulties and who can't be accommodated in mainstream education. And they told me that our Space Bubbles video tutorials, which are part of the free educator materials, are at the right level for his students. There are three approaches to teaching I'm going to cover in this presentation. First, in blue, is the approach of make a game step by step using video. This is an approach that solely relies on video tutorials where users build and extend games starting from no knowledge using drag and drop, and then progress into making these games using GML coding. This is more appropriate in home learning situations, out of school camps and clubs where there's no formal framework needed for learning code. The students are learning the skills in a more hands-on way, so educators may need to provide some structure to what they've learned afterwards using the educator classroom materials. This approach requires less educator input. Then, in orange, make a game step by step with the teacher leading. In this approach, the educator provides guidance on the teaching of coding to fulfill a school curriculum, and this is reinforced by step-by-step tutorials. It comes with an assessment structure and homework. This is the approach taken by our educator resources and will require the educator to run online tutorials to go through the slides. Finally, in green, we have set a project for students to interpret. This is generally the approach we've seen taken with those aged 15 to 16. This is actually the most popular approach and is used in more advanced curricula where students are required to show creativity and practical implementation of programming. For this approach, I will show you the resources that can provide guidance and inspiration. This graph shows how teachers evaluate the progress made by students. Our free tutorials include fully documented teacher and peer evaluation criteria. Assessing progress can be a difficult part of home learning, but GameMaker enables easy sharing of games so educators can check on progress and make sure students are on the right track. In a 2019 survey, we got some great feedback from educators on how using game design has aided the education process at their school. Here are some excerpts. The kids are happier in class. There aren't behavioral problems like there are in other classes. Games require creatives and tech teams to work together with a common goal to solve. While they build games, they also build friendships, learning to overcome hardships and create something meaningful. My students very much enjoy the game design unit that I teach. Personally, I think that game design is effective at improving problem solving, attention to detail, and teamwork. The students have learned to solve complex and abstract problems by themselves. The content provides a sufficient challenge and helps develop persistence and attention to detail. It has certainly enabled some students who are otherwise disengaged in the curriculum to re-engage. So, what about the students? What do they get out of it? What do they enjoy the most? Well, here are some responses submitted by their teachers. Definitely the end where they finally tried their own game, even if it was the most simple game in the world. Learning to overcome challenges and have a working program. The students love to show their parents what they have made by themselves. They are very proud of it if they get the idea done and improve their skills. The feeling of accomplishment when completing a game and watching others play the game that they built. Being able to create an original game, then watch their peers play it is such a high for these kids. To be able to say, I made that, is a real ego boost. Creating games, making rapid progress and in a short span of time. Thinking up new games, brainstorming is normally a pain to get students to do, but not when it involves game design. Seeing their ideas take shape. So the benefits of making games include achieving elements of a curriculum, student engagement, student creativity, teamworking, problem solving, and persistence. I'll finish this section by sharing an article I found recently on why it's important that young people learn game design, how it improves their learning performance and prepares them for work. So to look at some of the different teaching styles. At age 12 to 14, school curriculums are generally focused on teaching students the fundamentals of coding and giving them engaging ways to put those newly learned skills into practice. To this end, we created space bubbles. This slide lists everything that is included in the materials. Space bubbles is a D&D, or drag and drop, project-based scheme of work where students work on one project over the course of 8 one-hour lessons, with 30 minutes being spent on learning coding and 30 minutes being spent on making the Space Bubbles game. Over these lessons, students are taught how to program by recreating their own version of the game Space Bubbles using the video tutorials. Aimed at children aged 12 to 14, but can be used for older or younger, depending on the skill set, is a great place to start. It was developed by Terry Watts, who is a teacher and was formerly a game designer. In a home learning environment, the lessons can be taught using the Zoom, and the teacher can progress using the video tutorials. They're able to export their games, submit their games for evaluation by a teacher, and complete their self-assessment forms. Each lesson has its own starter project that contains everything as it should be at the end of the previous lesson. So if a student gets stuck in a specific lesson, they won't fall behind and they can just move on to the next one. The curriculum topics covered include programming key concepts and principles, sequencing, selection statement and iterations, modeling the state and behavior of real-world problems and physical systems. For example, one of the homework exercises within this is to find the correct order of a set of listed steps in order to successfully make a hot chocolate. It also contains information on teaching review, self-review, and peer review. Moving now to video tutorials, which don't require a teacher to lead. This is Space Rocks, the first of our consumer tutorials, where students can learn on their own. This game is based on the classic Asteroids game and was created for a beginner level, with many of the same mechanics as Space Bubbles. It covers both drag and drop and GameMaker language, so you can make the game in D&D and then remake it in GML to better understand how the logic translates. This is an official tutorial made by one of our community educators, Friendly Cosmonaut. So it also helps to introduce a different teaching style and includes an intro to GameMaker itself. The focus of this is to retain engagement through quick wins. Within the first few minutes, your students will have created a ship, got it moving, and then after that, you're just layering on additional game elements. Space Mods then builds on Space Rocks. It also has D&D and GML versions. This additional content can also support students who need more help with Space Bubbles extensions and challenge tasks. It contains 12 additional videos, that's over 2 hours, explaining how to use and implement cameras, parallax layering, for that backgrounds that are a 3D perspective, enemy ships, power-ups, and visual effects such as particles and screen shape. There's a nice comment here from a user who felt they were able to start making their own modifications to their game once they completed some of the Space Mods videos. Breakthrough is a brick breaker game. It's taught for both D&D and GML, so students will have the opportunity to develop the game in both methods. Around half of all projects being worked on in GameMaker are in D&D, so there's no need to rush on to GML before you're ready. You and your students can move on once you feel prepared to do so. This is a totally different style of game, but shares fundamental concepts with the tutorials I've mentioned so far, and the teaching is still at a beginner level. Fire Jump is one of our latest tutorials. It is a full game tutorial for D&D that introduces the basics of GameMaker to create your own infinite platformer game. It comes as a 4-part tutorial series. Please check it out after the webinar. Click the link for more information. And on that site, there's a link to play the web version of this game. For those aged 15 to 16, we see the school curriculum focused more on the creative applications of coding in GameMaker. With project-based tutorials, you can set a theme and see how your students interpret it, then judge it based on a marking scheme. The scheme could include the following, for example. interpretation of the theme, complexity or functionality used, playability, coding practices, creativity. Here are links to some resources for tools, artwork, audio, and some other things that can be used as a basis for game creation. The Global Game Jam link at the bottom of the page there is particularly noteworthy as they run the world's largest game jam every year. We also have blog articles that can provide inspiration. They're from our team and pro developers alike. These can fit well with other tutorials, such as Space Bubbles and Space Rocks. They cover a wide variety of topics from planning, creating game mechanic, how-tos, getting your game finished, how to make your code neat, and many more subjects. There are also tutorials and guides on YouTube that may provide you with inspiration, as there are users with a range of skills that have made videos for many aspects of game making. I've found a link here. It's just an example link of some of the games and tutorials that you can find easily on YouTube. All GameMaker Studio 2 features and functionality are fully documented with examples in our online manual. There's a link at the bottom of this slide to the manual. One of the problems with evaluating students aged 15 to 16 while they're home learning is that group projects and group learning can be more difficult to achieve. To assist with this, we have official tools videos that are accessible through our YouTube channel. These take you through all the tools and editors and provide information on how they work. If you're looking for a more expansive set of game tutorials, I'd recommend this developer who, in this tutorial series, will explain how to make a platformer game. It starts at a beginner level using GameMaker language. Our blog page also connects to the author's YouTube, where they explain a lot of development concepts with practical examples. This is Sean Spalding's platformer tutorial series. They're the developer that I was talking about in the last slide. This is a series of 27 videos on YouTube that will teach every step of the process of making a complete platformer, from opening a blank project to having a complete game. We have new education materials that were released just last year. This is a more detailed GML game design tutorial for artists and people starting to learn game design, aimed at college and university level. In this series, you are guided on how to make a game called Little Town, an adventure game created by university lecturer and game designer Ben Rivers. Ben teaches game design at the Faculty of Design at OCAD in Ontario. These materials include a detailed booklet and video tutorial which students can use to make the game using the 8 one-hour lessons. There are about 9 hours of videos in total. We also provide an instructor guide, which is a 306-page PDF that has a set of written step-by-step tutorials, a guide on how to teach and evaluate student progress. Little Towns will utilize more advanced tutorial functionality within GameMaker, including our sequence animation functionality. All our licenses provide access to the sequence editor. For older students, and by that I mean students aged 16 plus, they can use our community forums as a way to engage with our community for assistance with any problems they may have with their project, and also to just discuss their ideas. Who knows, maybe someday they'll be able to help other developers who are just starting out. We have 3 types of licenses available, and these can be purchased through Studica. First of all, there's the Educator license, which provides access to the desktop export, which is Windows, Mac, and Linux. The Educator Plus, which provides access to desktop and web exports, and Achiever, which gives you access to desktop, web, mobile, UWP, and more recently, PlayStation 4. There are 1- and 2-year options available. The seats are concurrent use licenses, so they can be used for multiple classes. GameMaker can be used on PC and Mac, not yet Chromebook, but due to the overwhelming demand from these webinars, we do have a version in development. As can be seen from this slide, which shows the answers to a question from our November 2020 survey. At that time, only 5% of teachers were unaffected by COVID. As a consequence, we have provided support to our users through COVID. Currently, up until the end of June 2022, all seat licenses can be used by 5 students simultaneously. So 30 seats that would have usually been used within a computer lab can be simultaneously used by 150 students learning from home. Now, hopefully, we don't have to extend this beyond June, but we will look nearer the time to see if this measure does need to be extended again. Privacy in education is important to us. The teacher will act as a seat manager, and they will receive one perpetual educator desktop license that they can use to investigate whether GameMaker is right for you and to understand how to set up the software within your school's network environment. The seats are entirely anonymous. The only information that is needed for a seat are a username that you set and a password that you also set. No personally identifiable information is collected by us for any seat user. There's more information in our privacy policy and the specific section on our approach to education if you follow the link on this slide. We're also approved for use by educationframework.com. As a thank you for attending our webinar and making it through to the end, you're eligible to receive a free teacher license. Christy will send you a link or click the button when we send these slides to you for step-by-step instructions. Do we have any questions about what I've said or about GameMaker more broadly? I'll try and answer them.
Kevin, it looks like there's 2 questions here. The first one, as a teacher, what support materials are available to help me get myself up to speed?
Within this, we have listed a few different teacher resources that are available. If you also just navigate to our website, yoyogames.com, you should be able to find other resources on there as well.
Great, and I just wanted to add that I will include a lot of that information in the follow-up email. So everyone, if you get that email, I'll have a lot of the links so you can access those. And the last question, can the seats also be used for after-school activities?
Yes, completely. You're in control of the seats that you create that have licenses attached to them. So anything academic that you wish to use the seats for, you're free to do so.
Okay, and that looks like the end of the question.
Fantastic. Thank you all again.
I just wanted to take a moment, Kevin, to thank you for this presentation. And everyone, as you can see, GameMaker is a great way to engage your students, and it's an excellent tool for teaching code and other STEM-related concepts. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact us at Studica at info@studica.com or the phone number provided. And again, I will be sending a follow-up email with all the links that Kevin mentioned. And just thank you so much for your time and enjoy your day.